Hello and welcome to our aquaponics farm lab here in Augusta, Georgia. I'm going to take you on a tour of this lab and just kind of show you what we're doing and explain a few things to you as we go along. Perhaps you're interested in starting a garden and you want to know more about it, or you just have never heard of aquaponics and you want to learn a little bit about it. As we walk through here, probably the first thing you'll notice are these big blue tanks. So these tanks are what we call our rearing tanks, and what we mean by that is that's where the fish grow. That's where they grow up and that's where they live. Inside these tanks you're going to find some fish. These are actually juvenile bluegill, and that's important to us. Bluegill are indigenous to the area here in Georgia where we're at, which makes it for more responsible farming, right? If we were to use some kind of species that are actually not indigenous to the area, they're actually invasive, and for some reason the water gets out of this tank, that could be detrimental to the environment. So we're pretty proud that we use bluegill, and we actually received these bluegill about a month and a half ago from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate their helping us do good for the environment. You're going to notice this pipe here. We're trying something new on this tank from what was in it before, hoping that it'll help clarify the water. As you can see right now, we have some issues with the clarification. I don't want to do too much of the system right now. As I said, we have juvenile bluegill. I don't want to do anything right now that will harm them. So we're going to tread lightly on that. And there's the barrel down there. Again, it's still a work in progress. We're still working on it. But that's part of this clarification system that we're retrofitting here. As you can see, as we go around, you can see the plant beds. That's our nursery area where the plants grow. And we're using some more mature fish. You can kind of see them swim around. Those are bluegill as well. They've been in the system for about 2 years now. As I said, we have a different system. This is what was on the tanks before. Not necessarily a good or bad thing, but unfortunately it's not working well for us, so we're going to try something new. What people don't necessarily recognize is that we actually grow 3 things here. Of course, we talked about one, that's the fish. Another thing that's kind of obvious is the plants. But the third thing that might not be so obvious is we actually grow bacteria here. Those bacteria actually take the waste that we receive from the fish and convert it into nitrite. And then more bacteria, a different variety, will actually come in and take that nitrite and convert it to nitrate. And that's what's used by the plants. As you see here, we have some collards. The amazing thing about what you can see here is about 3 days ago we actually did a harvest, and we're ready to harvest again in about 2 or 3 days. So it's pretty amazing. Food can be grown fairly quickly in an aquaponics system. There's actually, in this system, there's roughly 200 plants. You'll see here in our other system, I took some of the plants out of there, put them in this system. So there's roughly over 220 collard greens in these systems combined. Up above here, we actually are using this kind of as a incubator, if you want to say, for the plants. We kind of start them. It's more of an experiment right now. As you can see, a lot of these little plants probably will need to be transplanted here shortly by the way they look. What we're using for our material is actually clay pebbles. These pebbles float. As you can see, there is algae on them. You have to remember that we are creating an environment or an ecosystem that is meant to grow, and regrettably, algae will outcompete your plants every time. Okay, so it's unavoidable. So it's something to be expected. We've kind of mitigated it, as you can see by the depth of these rocks. So we're kind of mitigating it through the depth and kind of keeping the light out. But unfortunately, despite our efforts, we'll still see algae. There are other systems that we can use that we're going to try. So these plants are kind of just test subjects at the moment. We also have this system over here. I've planted some Thai basil. I kind of call them our resident plants, and they're important to me. As you can see, we have an awful lot of these plants here. The reason why they're important is we don't want the system to collapse, right? That either we'll have too much bacteria, too much nitrate, ammonia, etc. And we want to keep all that kind of in check. So we use these plants here to keep that in check. The good thing about them is you cut a little bit off, you use it, it grows back, it stays in the system. It's not a plant you necessarily need to pull out of it. As you can see here, we're growing some peppers. From what you can see, they're doing quite well. They already have some flowers on them. Okay, these are bell peppers. We're going to see how far they'll go. I'll try to record some more here in the future, and so you can see that. We also have some peppers down here, and as you can see, we're trying fennel. So you can grow a lot of things and a lot of different plants in these systems. It's quite nice. And as you can see, they grow fairly quickly. These collards were planted in March. Again, we've already harvested them. We could easily harvest them again and get more food. So they're a great system to grow food quickly. I appreciate your time, and thank you for stopping by.